It's a shrine to working class life, right? This poem goes out to the handful, relatively small number in comparison with 7 billion people in the world, but this goes out to all those globalists in the world, or that small group of globalists in the world that have divided us and conquered us for so long, and who are trying to do so more than ever now. I hope I don't make any mistakes for you. I'll try not. But here's my poem, The Right to Hate. You tell me what I can't say. You censor what I can. You say I'm offensive because I believe my eyes, and I say I see a woman, not a man. You call me thick and racist for not wanting to be a part of a rich man's club in Europe, or a global new world order with no soul or guts or heart. You throw at me the slave trade. You tell me my 4-year-old grandson is to blame. You point your branding, accusing, intolerant fingers and tell me to hang my head in shame. I'm free to have opinions as long as they fall in line with yours. I can fly my banners high and proud as long as you support that cause. You have to be right all the time. Yours is the only way. I have to like the things you like, be they black, trans, left or gay. It makes no difference if I tell you I'm not the things for which you accuse, 'cause once you've made up your closed off minds, I'm always gonna lose. I have black friends, so you're still a racist. Homophobic, but I've shared beds with gay men. I'm an anti-Semite, but the Rothschilds is the richest banking family in this world, and that's got nothing to do with them being Jewish and everything to do with them being multi-billionaires. Really do influence the dollar, pound and yen. You sip your Pinot Grigio in trendy bars down in the smoke, looking down your noses with loathsome contempt at billions of working class folk. Well, I've come here to tell you that you have had your time, 'cause the winds of change are blowing and bells of freedom soon will chime, 'cause my class, my fucking class, are waking up and stirring, and we're going to peacefully attack. We're going to breach those PC walls of segregation that have divided gay, straight, white and black. I've got no malice in my heart. I don't judge people on their sex or creed or race. I don't speak ill of absolute cunts behind the backs, not even the bloke who murdered me dad. I just tell them to the face. So to all you branding progressive liberals who won't allow debate, I hate no man or woman. I just want the right to hate. I want the right to hate like I want the right to love. I want to like and dislike what I want to like and dislike and be able to vocalise it, bruv. I'm not responsible for slavery, and I'm not taking any blame. 'Cause the white privilege built on black slavery you say that I enjoy, well, Beyonce, Jay-Z, Oprah Winfrey, Rihanna, Floyd Mayweather, Alicia Keys, Jamie Foxx, Barack Obama, et al. All enjoy the same. Beyonce spent $87 million on a house just through shaking that ass, while me and our lass sit at home lamenting about ways to pay the fucking gas. And I don't see too much white privilege in a system that lets East European refugees or wounded soldiers live in cardboard boxes. Why do Black Lives Matter and progressives fail to see not all white folks live in stately homes chasing fucking foxes? And I'm not homophobic, transphobic, racist or anything phobic, you see, 'cause I don't fear sex or race or gender. I just won't bow down to your PC. Don't confuse my use of slang with racism and bigotry. Don't confuse my rejection of your shite with spite. Don't naturally assume I'm thick and racist because I'm northern working class. I'm not. I'm articulate, sharp and bright. And I will not walk a minefield every time I open my mouth to speak. And I will not apologise for things I've glibly said or spoken tongue-in-cheek. So shape up or fuck off for your madness. 'Cause I'm going to bring you down. I'm going to bring working class people, all people together, Muslim, Christian, white and brown. I'm going to bring those globalist walls of Jericho crashing round your brainwashed progressive liberal feet. And I'm going to blow my loving, inclusive, un-PC fanfare. And your communist, fascist, capitalist, socialist, left, right, Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, Christian, black, white, gay, straight, male, female, leave, remain, Republican, Democrat, afraid of COVID-19, unafraid of COVID-19, north, south, divides I will defeat. You globalists, you've divided us and conquered us for way too long. You've taken the piss out of us, and you've laughed at us, and you've shared the benefits at the top. Well, I've come back to this northern working class shrine in my hometown of Redcar to tell you, now really is the time for your shit to fucking stop. Peace. Now I slowed that down because apparently I've got an American audience too. And we want it to go over there. We want this poem to go all over the world. It's not a poem of hate. It's a poem of tolerance. It's a poem of people coming together. It's a poem of people loving each other and disregarding the old way, the way that's kept us down and downtrodden for so long. I ask you, share this poem as far as you can. I don't know if Facebook have taken it down or not. I'm going to go up to County Durham now to see this bloke who made the post, uploaded this thing in the first place 3 years ago, 2 years ago. But I'm gonna go and see him. But if Facebook have taken it down, then let's keep on going. Let's share it some more. Let's show them that that we won't be beaten. Let's go. Come together. Share this post. Share the life out of this post. Thanks very much. God bless you and bye.
This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this.
Very good evening. I had no intention of returning this Sunday. I'm sure all of you know I am completely exhausted. And yet, all of those who have fought battles before know we do not choose the battles we fight sometimes. Sometimes the battle comes to us. And when it does, regardless of how tired we are, we have no choice but to fight back. I am not at all surprised by the article in the Sunday Times. I think some of you misunderstood my post and my satire, irony. Call it what you will. There is a war being waged in this country between people like you and I and the metropolitan elite, the fake liberals, the ones whose only aspiration is to exploit people of my working class background, to divide people who look like you from people who look like me, and at any opportunity where it looks as though we share a platform and unite and come together, they will label us racists. Which is why I played that poem, and I will put the link up once I finish this transmission. It's a serious transmission today because I did not want to come on. So it's a very serious transmission today. I think it is clear that whilst they have aligned themselves with gangsters, heroin dealers, criminal politicians, we have maintained our integrity and our dignity. Whilst Wilby has raged, whilst they followed me to my house, took photographs of my family, took pictures of my front door, told my friends that my days were numbered, we have maintained behavior that should be applauded. And so to every one of you, please, my ask is continue to do all the right things in the right way, and history will judge us, like history always does. Who stood against the oppression of working class communities? Who objected to the grooming and gang rape of the town's children? Who spoke out against corruption and the cartel expansion? And who continued to attack us with every resource at their disposal? I will start, I think, with sharing with you an understanding, my understanding of what a 21st century fit for purpose anti-racism strategy in this country should look like. And I will share with you this. I'll try again. I will share with you this because, contrary to what these people claim about me, the anti-racist strategy that this country now enjoys, which moved on from the one before, was in part designed by me, a northern working class lad from a town that experiences the lived reality of these issues, rather than some nonsense you read in a textbook or some false ideological position that is enjoyed from the leafy suburbs of Didsbury or Charlton. They can attack me. They can continue to attack me. It makes no difference to me. I'm here till the end. I think that is very clear. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to do the opening credits, and I'll see you in a moment.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Good evening. It is 7:30. It is the 16th of May, Sunday the 16th of May 2021. The day the Sunday Times. Oh, as featured in the Sunday Times. What do you people think? I'm going to add that to my resume. If I ever get round to ever having a resume, I'll add that to my resume. As featured in the Sunday Times. What do you all think? And do you know what? Do you know what I did? When they got in touch with me, I sent them a photograph. Sorry, I'm going to turn the widget off. I'm really grateful to all of you who are buying me coffees. Please, it's the only way I keep going. It's as simple as that, and I'm being as honest as that. It's the only way I can keep the lights on, is you guys buying me coffees. I am, to all extents and purposes, unemployable in the field I operate in because of the hatchet job done to me by starting from the likes of Jennifer Williams and now Hannah Ottoman. I don't know how to pronounce the surname. So Hannah, I'm sure you're watching. My apologies on your surname. I'm not going to do anything silly with it. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. I will go through some welcomes first. Thank you very, very much to all of you who have been sending me messages. First of all, wishing me a happy Eid. I did enjoy Eid on Thursday. Thank you. I spent it with my daughter. I spent it with my nephews and nieces and my mother. And for a part of it, I played swing ball with the racket and stuff in a garden. So that's how I spent Eid. And nibbling samosas. Plenty of samosas. So that is what I did on Eid. Now, before I get going, please, I have 54 thumbs up, 54 likes. My subscribers are 400 and something. And I have 120 people plus watching this now. And every time I get my analytics, I am shown that 60% of the people who watch me don't subscribe to the channel. So please, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. And if you like the post, it just means it gets pushed by YouTube. So the more that like it, the more YouTube pushes it and the more new viewers we have. That is actually one of the main reasons why we swapped from Facebook Live to YouTube, is to try and reach a wider audience. And they know this. They know this, which is what today was all about. It is a high-level, desperate attempt at censorship. And we'll go into that. We'll go into that later. And I am going to start by putting up this. Lee, for those of you who know it, gave me my first job. And my first job was based out of some porter cabins on Turf Lane in Chadderton. And she sent me to Sholver. And she sent me to Durka. And that is the beginnings of my professional education, which gave me the perspective I have on race equality in this country. And you know what it is? It's a very simple one. There are probably 3 strands to my perspective on race equality. 1, if we are going to build an inclusive, progressive society, then we need to address the injustices faced by all communities instead of prioritizing one over another. The second strand of my ideology, my belief, is success can only be achieved when we work together on the issues that we collectively face. And the third strand is, this is why they hate me. I refuse to condemn my fellow townsfolk who, through their lived realities, have a negative appreciation of race. I will not abandon my people. I never have, and I never will. I don't care if you're black, white, brown, Muslim, Christian, Jew. If you belong to my town, then I belong to you, and I have a responsibility towards you. And that is essentially how I've conducted myself in my professional career at the forefront of UK race equality practice for the best part of 30 years. I've probably been doing this work longer than that Hannah young woman has been alive. And yet throughout this, I have been branded a racist. And the people who and I mean this with the greatest of respect, the people who I have been educating and supporting and refusing to abandon have been named far-right extremists and disregarded as rabble. Now, the reason they want to shut us down, and they're now clutching at straws, is because it should be very clear to most of you, even the ones who despise and hate me, and want to physically attack me and abuse me after they fail to intimidate me. It should be abundantly clear. And again, I say this not with any level of arrogance. No one has ever described me as an arrogant man. Nonetheless, being raised where I was raised, there was only two ways out. One was to go and be a gangster, and the other one was to use this. On the basis that I was slight of frame, and as a child suffered very badly with asthma, I choose to use this. And I do not doubt my intelligence. I am, to all extents and purposes, a very intelligent man. And what I have tried to do is use this to educate and support my townsfolk and my people, and amplify their voices and their concerns and their issues, so that those in power have to listen to us. Because what those in power are very, very adept at doing is trapping my people. So what they are trying to articulate and express is maneuvered so that it appears to be racist, so it can be dismissed. Unfortunately, whilst the likes of Sean Fielding and Jim McMahon were playing ghetto politics, I was working for central government, advising government ministers, working with prime ministers, successive prime ministers. And I have a set of skills that I have brought back with me through a twist of fate or fortune. We call it Kismet. And I find myself back amongst the people who raised me. And I see the injustices they face. I see the contempt in which they are treated. I see how they are exploited. And something deep inside of me snaps. And so I started writing. Because that's what I used to do. I used to write policy. So I started writing. And my writing struck a chord with the people of my town. Nowhere in my writing have I ever communicated hatred or divisive speech. And if there is satire and comedy and a play on words, then that is perhaps down to the old working class blokes who helped raise me whilst I was a child, whose doorsteps I played on, and some of their wit and wisdom brushed off on me. And now, after failed attempts at censorship, repeated failed attempts at censorship, repeated failed attempts at having me arrested, having me beaten and battered, and let us not forget that the gangster Arood Shah, the new leader of Oldham Council, whose arm she hangs off of, was convicted of a crime against me on the 21st of December, barely 6 months ago. This career criminal, who spent most of his adult life in prison, an associate of Jim McMahon's, Sean Fielding's, and other Labour Party politicians. Let us not forget that all of this has been brushed over by the mainstream media. And so I was not at all surprised by the aggressive email I received from Hannah Al-Ottman, who now apparently works for the Sunday Times. It popped up in my inbox about 2:30. Anyone who knows me knows my Friday nights are spent with my daughter. I pick her up from school. We have fish and chips and spend the night together. And her aggressive email wanted a response by lunchtime on Saturday. Now, I've been in this space before with a woman called Jennifer Williams from the MEN. When it first happened, 5-6 years ago now, I felt sick to the pit of my stomach because it was written in such an aggressive, conclusive way, a whole series of lies. And this Hannah Al-Ottman, who's apparently from Middleton, This guy sounds like my Zoom teacher with all the awkward pauses in between sentences. Bye. People who know me know I do not script anything. I don't read off a teleprompter. I mean every word I say, and every word I say comes from my mouth. It's not presented to me by someone else. Now, the problem with Hannah and her deadlines, and from my experiences in the past, is when you take a beating, and any of you who've took beatings before, and you know what's coming, and you've took beatings that many times, your mind goes somewhere else, and you no longer feel the pain in the same way. You're no longer scared of taking the beating in the same way. And so, about midnight, when I put my daughter to bed, it was 6 in the morning, I sent this woman back a response. And I'll go through it in a bit. And I finished it off with, and whilst you're at it, have an up-to-date photograph of me. Because my fear of the mainstream media disappeared the day I decided to stop thinking about suicide. Because that is the space they left me in. With their lives, their lies, and their half-truths. So, 4 hours I spent, and knowing full well that she would use next to none of it, if any of it at all. But what Hannah didn't realise is that how I would now use what I responded, because my accountability, and yes, I am accountable, my accountability isn't to her, it isn't to the Labour Party, it isn't to Angela Rayner or Jim McMahon, it isn't to the Sunday Times or their readership that spends £3 on the newspaper. I can't afford £3 on a newspaper. It's as simple as that. I didn't buy it. But I do have accountability. And my accountability is to the people of my town. It is to the 100 or so of you who are listening. 145 I have now listening to me. I think, first and foremost, Hannah does a disservice to, not me at all. I think, first and foremost, Hannah does a disservice to the people of Failsworth. The people of Failsworth, the best part of 1,500 of them, went and voted for the Failsworth Independent Party. Another 1,500 or so voted for the other candidate for the Failsworth Independent Party. So for 3,000 people from Failsworth went and voted for change. They voted for people they know who will stand by them first and foremost, rather than try to use them as a stepping stone in their careers or a meal ticket. So the people of Failsworth have somehow been brainwashed by me and my far right narrative, or hard right narrative, or QAnon nonsense, or whatever QAnon is. I don't even know properly because I've paid very little attention. The people of Failsworth have somehow been brainwashed. And this is from a woman who's never been to Failsworth and couldn't count, or she had fingers left to count on one hand, the number of people she would know from Failsworth. So there you have it. First and foremost, it is a disservice to the people of Failsworth. Secondly, and I apologise to Brian and Mark and the others at the Failsworth Independent Party. But sorry guys, you are second in my list of people they've injusticed, or Hannah has injusticed. It's you guys. I have never seen or heard a single right-wing, far-right, racist sentiment expressed at all from men who I have the deepest respect for, who conduct themselves with the utmost amount of dignity. And I know that they would have responded to Hannah likewise at the Sunday Times. And I know, like others, she would have point blank ignored them. And she, a 20-something, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, a 20-something-year-old young woman who's living it up in London, who's keen to belong to that set of people, is promoting this nonsense that the reason why Sean Fielding was defeated in a local election is because something I did and the right-wing views that I peddle and the far-right racist views that I peddle. And this is fundamentally it, isn't it, Tracy? I also believe that Hannah Al-Ottman does the Labour Party and also Sean Fielding a disservice. Yeah, you heard me right. And that disservice is she has not stopped to look to see how disgraceful their behaviour has been and how it is actually them who are responsible for the Labour Party losing votes. It was the Labour Party's own actions. The betrayal of the working class. McMahon looking fatter and fatter every time he was on the news. Forget nibbling samosas. Bet there was a main course and a dessert as well. Probably 2 desserts. The Labour Party in Oldham has betrayed us. It has failed us, it has left us behind. And that is not a far-right point of view. It has picked a side in a town like Oldham, and that side is the block vote. The cartel-controlled Asian bloc vote. And that cartel-controlled Asian bloc vote that the Labour Party has picked is not just damaging my friends in our white working class communities, it is damaging my friends in the communities where I was raised. Have a look what happened in Westwood and Coldust. Azad lost by 71 votes to Jabbar. 71 votes. Look at Glodick. Aftab, second term, independent. Again beating the Labour Party candidate. Have a look at Werneth and the likes of Feeder and Shoaib Akhtar. Never once have they spoken out against me because they know what is taking place in this town. If you're involved in the politics of the Labour Party, go and speak to the white Labour Party veterans and ask them if what I am saying is a lie. Of how uneasy they are, of how McMahon has doubled down on the cartel-controlled bloc vote for his power base. Of how it is McMahon who really runs the town by strategically placing Asian politicians in certain roles in certain places. Now, Hannah, come to my town. I'll show you around. But you're not interested in that, Hannah, are you? Because in the same way, McMahon, Fielding and Angela Rayner used my people, the working class people, as a stepping stone for their careers, so too you want to exploit us and demonize us so you can progress your career. That's right, isn't it? And this opinion that Labour are a bunch of crooks who will never have my vote is one that is gaining traction, not just in Oldham, but across working class towns with a high Asian demographic. And there you go. So she attempted to do a hatchet job on me, and I'll go through her email. So you'll have to bear with me. I turn all my equipment off, so my iPad, which is linked, is just been on the charge, so it's now at 13%, which should be enough. But just give me a second, and I need to wait for a screen to load. Sorry, I'm looking at the... I'm over 150 people are watching. Brilliant. And so we're very clear. I have nothing against the people of Chorlton or Didsbury. I spent yesterday in Chorlton on the market. Had a great time. And that's how many people feel, Sue. They've destroyed our town. And like leeches, all they want is the ratepayers' money, and that when that's running out, they'll build more houses to leech some more, stuff the green belt, stuff the schools, stuff the lack of services, so dentists, doctors, no. As long as they get the record pay, everything's okay. Sorry, Debbie. It is Brian, Mark and Neil. I've never met Neil. I look forward to having a drink with him at some point. Failsworth Independent Party have now got 3 councillors. They've been working for 3 years in Failsworth. Perhaps, Hannah, the people of Failsworth went and voted for them because they knew them and the work that they were doing. Why is that so hard to believe? Okay, please, before I get on, buy me a coffee. If you haven't bought me a coffee, if you can buy me a coffee. The truth is that's how I keep going. The £2 that you spend on buying me a coffee, I don't have the resources of the Sunday Times. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. We're at 80, so please. There you go. I wanted to start with this picture. It was Glasgow on Thursday. An immigration van had snatched 2 Indian lads who'd been living in the city for 10 years. South side of Glasgow. And my Glaswegian friends won't object to this. A working class, rough sort of neighbourhood, yeah. News quickly went around that 2 local lads, 2 Indian lads who'd been there for 10 years, had been snatched by the immigration van. One lad came and lined underneath the van to stop it from driving off. Hundreds descended on the area. Most of them lived round there. Most of them white and working class. In solidarity with 2 Indian lads. Why am I sharing this? Because the establishment narrative is that people like you hate people like me. Yet the lived reality for most of us is nothing of the sort, any more than it is people like me want to groom and rape your daughters or your wives. The lived reality is nothing like that for you either. We know right from wrong. And that's where I want to start this. We know the difference between right and wrong. And that is why I believe the people of Failsworth went and voted against Sean Fielding. They know the difference between right and wrong. This is the young lady. I picked a nice photograph of her. I didn't want to be disrespectful. She's from Middleton, apparently. And my friend Susie Allen, who now lives in Australia, I think, from Shaw, wrote something lovely. Where she said she follows Hannah because they both went to the same sixth form, but took offence at the way Hannah described me when peddling this far-right nonsense. Because she actually admitted who I was and what I'd done my entire life. And I'll keep saying it because it's relevant. I have just short of a 30-year career at the forefront of anti-racist practice in this country. There has never been a racist word uttered from my mouth. They did, didn't they, Debbie? 2 Indian lads, great support and one. We are a rabble of honourable people. Tanya. Thank you, Mark. So she arrived at your house at 5 o'clock. You told her your story, but she did not include anything in her article. It didn't suit the narrative. Hannah did not even do me the justice of responding to my detailed correspondence to her. You're a disgrace, Hannah. If you were a friend of mine, I would be ashamed of you. Ready for the tone? Oh, before we continue. So some context. Some context. She graduated from the University of Salford. The former guy in charge, the South African lad, was a friend of mine at the University of Salford. So I used to have meetings there regularly. But she graduated from the University of Salford, so I won't hold it against you, Hannah, because I know it to be a good university that prides itself in taking in working class kids from the community in a way Manchester University doesn't. It's seen as an elitist place, but the University of Salford always prided itself in taking in the working classes and giving them a chance. News reporter at the Lancashire Telegraph, blah, 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 now based in London. It's the bit at the bottom. My previous experience includes working as a press officer for 2 members of Parliament. They were Labour Party politicians you were a press officer for, weren't they, Hannah? Context matters. Context always matters. Here you go. And not just that. Whilst in Burnley, remember, look at this. Her link to Burnley is as a news reporter at the Lancashire Telegraph. That's what her link to Burnley was, she claims. Yet here is Julie Cooper, the Shadow Health Minister from 2013, clearly referencing Hannah as a real asset in Burnley. Not just a kitty, that's the Labour Party politician, but to the Labour Party campaign machine. So straight away, this young woman's perspective on this issue is not as a journalist seeking truth. It is as a press officer for the Labour Party. Please, Hannah, if I'm doing a disservice, let me know. But you were brought in to do a hatchet job, weren't you, Hannah? Does that make you proud, Hannah? Do you look at yourself in the mirror and smile as you try and destroy the lives of decent people? She isn't going to do that, Paul, but it's there. There you go. Julie Cooper, the Shadow Health Minister, clearly makes reference to Kitty. So that's exactly the same Kitty Usher you are referencing, who was sacked for attempting to avoid capital gains tax. Let me try and make this bigger if I can, because I think it's important, and I'll scroll. No, it's not going to work, so I will have to go back to how it was, sorry. Okay, you can see 14:27 on Friday. 14:27. Marlene, you've made it on. Brilliant. $14.27. I am contacting you with regards to a story that we intend to publish in the Sunday Times. It relates to allegations that have been made on social media, primarily Facebook, against members of the Labour Party in Oldham. We intend to report, we intend to report, so they've already made their mind up. We intend to report that Sean Fielding, former leader of Oldham Council, believes that these allegations influenced the result of last week's council election. We intend to report that allegations have also been made against other Labour politicians, including Angela Rayner, Debbie Abrahams and Jim McMahon, and that you were the original proponent of the allegations, which are false. We further intend to report that allegations were first made against McMahon when he responded to concerns from constituents about academy schools run by yourself, which later shut down. We intend to report that posts from your Facebook page shared on local residents groups allege that Fielding has covered up child abuse, refer to the former council leader as Samosha Sean Fielding, and accuse Labour of voter fraud and corruption. We further intend to report, DC, we intend further, that a post on your page alleged worrying news emerging of police being called to multiple polling stations where Asian candidates or their cartel goons are intimidating voters. Do not be surprised if there are no arrests. By now we all know who the gatekeeper D.I. Kenny Blaine and Andy Burnham control Greater Manchester Police are there to protect. Fielding and other Labour politicians said that the allegations you had made were raised with them by voters. And they believe that posts such as these on Facebook influenced the result of the election. Should you wish to comment on any of the above points, please ensure that any response reaches me by 12 noon tomorrow, Saturday. I am not a violent man, which is when I come across paths with Hannah, I will give her a piece of my mind. Exactly, Mark. Exactly. So I reflected on it, and remember 2:27 when this came through, and I didn't check it dead on 2:27, but my phone bleeps when the emails come through. I was actually pulled up outside my daughter's school ready to pick her up for 3 o'clock. And this is the context of where all of this is taking place. I am trying desperately to be a good, decent father to my daughter. And And when things like this come, they have an impact. I'm not a politician. And this is the Sunday Times, one of the most distinguished newspapers in this country, the Sunday Times. So I responded to her. I think it was 6 in the morning by the time this went out. Because obviously I couldn't do anything whilst I was with my daughter. I had to wait to, she had to get to bed. And then I had to compose myself. Dear Miss Aloffman, I'm somewhat bemused by your email. In the first instance, you are already clearly stating what you intend to report and offer me less than 24 hours on a Friday evening, Saturday morning to respond. Furthermore, from the tone of your communication, it is clear that contacting me is an afterthought. And I do what I do. I break it down point by point, and I think it's of value to all of you that I go through this, because this is what I sent her. Before we look at what she said, we should see what I sent her, in the same way Mark spoke to her on his doorstep. And I've not spoken to Mark. Mark will tell you I've not spoken to him. Moving on to your communication. I'm confused by what it is you are accusing me of. Are you claiming that by sharing my thoughts and opinions on the Labour Party, I affected the council election results in Oldham? Is there any specific result you are referencing, or are you referring to the multiple Labour Party losses in Oldham? I find your conclusion astonishing, seeing as though the Labour Party took a hammering across the country. Yeah, the Labour Party, you've seen it on the BBC, every newspaper. Keir Starmer took a hammering. Andy Burnham is already lining himself up, wanting to be the next leader. Yvette Cooper's doing the same. Am I responsible for all of that? With the, let me just check, 156 people and 87 thumbs up. Sorry, 88 thumbs up. Thank you. Moving on to your referencing of my allegations against members of the Labour Party that affected the results. You do not state which allegations. Really important. Do you see? She does not state which allegations. I'm comfortable that the information I released is based on evidence, and that in a free society, I am able to draw conclusions as I see fit. Remember, they've tried to have me arrested already and failed. You will note from your own Twitter direct mail through which you contacted me, I sent you a link to one of my articles dating back to the 11th of September 2019. That's right. I contacted Hannah Aloffman with one of my Welcome to Oldham series. I think it was part 1 or part 2. On the 11th of September 2019. Of course, she never responded, but that's beside the point. There is a clear paper trail in Hannah's inbox on Twitter where I contacted her in September 2019. Now, in the world I come from, if I'd done something wrong in September 2019 and been allowed to continue, then I've not done anything wrong. Because voicing our views and opinions based upon evidence and experience is what we are allowed to do in a liberal Western democracy. It would not be appropriate for me to hypothesize what these allegations are that you refer to. You will need to be more clear. So what are the allegations, Hannah? Irrespective. If Sean Fielding or anyone else in the Labour Party feel that I have done something illegal, they should be going to the police. Also, I'm sure the irony is not lost on the Sunday Times, a newspaper with global reach accusing someone of using a media platform to inform and influence others. So are they allowed to inform and influence others? And I'm not? Is that the rules of the game? They can, but I can't. They with the hundreds of millions of pounds, and me with my £2 donations. You also state you intend to report that I have made allegations against Jim McMahon, Angela Rayner and Debbie Abrahams. It is unclear from your email what these allegations are that you refer to, and whether you are claiming that information that I have released about MPs has influenced council election results. I would welcome some clarity here. I understand democracy. I helped design citizenship curriculum that's gone into schools across the country. I understand the difference between local government and national government. The councils are where we elect councillors. The general election is where we elect MPs. My understanding was that last week we had what was called a local election, where we elect councillors. Just so we're clear. You then state that you intend to report that I first made allegations against McMahon when he responded to concerns from constituents about academy schools run by yourself, which later shut down. Are you a journalist or a Labour Party press officer? I understand that you fulfilled this role for previous MPs. Have you stopped to check if the information I released was accurate, or does that not concern you? So there is no ambiguity. Regarding Jim McMahon, the following is 100% accurate and evidenced. If you decide to omit this information in your article to misrepresent or malign me, then of course I will raise the issue with your editor, Ipso, and my barrister, John Sampson. Yes, I have a barrister. I can't afford him properly, but I have a barrister and he humours me. John used to actually be the in-house legal expert for The Guardian. The articles written by Schools Week are false and libellous. I have confirmation of this from the DFE, and this is an ongoing legal matter. I urge the Sunday Times not to publish anything from Schools Week as fact. For your information, I am awaiting details of correspondence involving my data from Oldham Council and Schools Week in the lead up to their articles. I am 100% certain that Sean Fielding liaised with Schools Week and Jim McMahon in an attempt, and that those series of lies and lies and lies in those Schools Week articles was done by a friendly Labour journalist in communication with the council. Of that I am in no doubt. But these are the issues, the allegations, and they're not allegations, but the facts that I raised regarding Jim McMahon. Notice, here we go. Jim McMahon used the funeral of Lee Rigby to hide news of grooming gangs operating out of Sisha Baz. I have shared the dossier of emails into the public domain, and the paper trail is clear. Jim McMahon was scheduled to attend an election rally at Oldham Central Mosque in 2019. I have the screen grabs of Facebook posts from his assistant Arud Shah to confirm this. The management committee of the mosque is almost exclusively made up of Labour Party members, and the mosque itself was loaned tens of thousands of pounds by the council on an interest-free basis of 18 years. This included during the time Jim McMahon was leader of Oldham Council. This information was initially hidden by the council. Paper trails released, solver, even FOI responses. It's not an allegation, it's the truth. Oldham Council secretly funded mosques. Jim McMahon was scheduled to go to an election rally at a mosque. This isn't open to interpretation. Jim McMahon attended a celebration event at Oldham Central Mosque where the Mosque Management Committee, who is Management Committee member, who is also the Assistant Secretary of the local Labour Party branch, posted on Twitter that McMahon was at a party thanking the mosque for all the votes. His name is Aftab Kaha. Find him on Twitter. I've posted the photographs. McMahon attended a party to thank them for all the votes. That's not according to me. That's according to the guy who arranged the party at the mosques. The chairman of Oldham Central Mosque, until ousted, is a convicted sex offender, as well as being pictured with Jim McMahon, who was also the official Labour Party candidate in council elections at the time McMahon was leader of the Labour group in Oldham. McMahon has also been photographed with other criminals, including sex offenders and killers. I've not photoshopped those photographs. The former chairman of Oldham Central Mosque, the council records will show he was the Labour Party candidate. The picture of him with his red rosette next to Jim McMahon is there for all to see. Jim McMahon has been pictured out campaigning with Mohibur Rahman of CSDA. The former chief executive of CSDA was convicted of fraud, and despite this, Oldham Council sold a number of buildings to one of McMahon's associates. One of these turned into an Islamic school that failed all safeguarding measures, and another building is now a wedding venue. Questions remain unanswered of how or if these buildings were valued and what role McMahon had in the sale to an associate of his. It's all factual. I've released a picture of him out campaigning together with that Naz guy. Go to the Carnegie Library in Chadderton. See if you can get in. It's now some sort of Islamic centre mosque. I can't keep up. Go further along to the swimming baths. You'll see it's got bright disco lights and it's a wedding venue. These are our assets that the council offloaded to a friend of Jim McMahon's. Moving on. Oh, no, one more, of course. Jim McMahon provided the heroin-dealing getaway driver of the Oldham cop killer Dale Cregan with a reference whilst on parole. McMahon refuses to clarify whether this reference was before or after Irishimi was recalled to prison. McMahon also provides Irishimi with a platform on his social media page whilst blocking other law-abiding members of the town. Do you see? Clear, coherent facts. These aren't allegations, Hannah. I know facts and journalism. Moving on. So I understand this right. You intend to report that posts from my Facebook page shared on local residents groups allege that Fielding has covered up child abuse, refer to the former council leader as Sean Samosa Fielding, and accuse Labour of voter fraud and corruption. Do you intend to report on the accuracy of any of this? So she wants to report that I've said it. She doesn't want to report on the accuracy of this. And is the Sunday Times really writing a story because someone used the word samosa? You are aware, and this is the context. Context always matters. You are aware that I used the term after Sean Fielding attended a celebration party and nibbled on samosas. This party was following a decent Labour Party councillor being deselected by an associate of Jim McMahon's. I personally found a council leader celebrating the deselection of one Labour Party councillor with another candidate to be distasteful. I did. I found it completely distasteful that a decent, hard-working local Labour Party councillor had been deselected, and then Sean Fielding, Arood Shah, Abdul Jabbar, Shahid Mushtaq all turned up to a celebration party and nibbled on samosas. The ousting of one of your peers in that way should not be celebrated by the leader of the council. I found that distasteful, and so I refer to him as samosa. I don't think that's a swear word, do you? I was not aware that using the term samosa Sean Fielding was Sunday Times news. For your information, Sean Fielding is more commonly known in the town by the nickname Captain Underpants. After he had his girlfriend hold up a picture of his grubby underpants whilst he shared his sexual fantasy. Unfortunately, as I would like to, I cannot take credit for this. Joking aside, it did not go unnoticed in the town that his tweet coincided with his announcement of a CSE inquiry. As a young woman, Hannah, let me ask you something. If you were a victim of CSE and had been failed already, how would you feel if the leader of Oldham Council posted this tweet to coincide with his council asking for victims to come forward? If you think this was a coincidence, to coincide with letters being sent to historical victims that were on record as being groomed and raped as children, the local press headlined the story where Sean Fielding accused victims and their families of making up the allegations. I've got the screen grabs of the headlines of the Oldham Chronicle. I'm sure you've all seen them. Who are you messing with, Hannah? Who are you messing with? Anywhere you want, bring whoever you want from the Sunday Times. Just who do you think you are messing with? The cover-up of child abuse across the northern mill towns is not at all an allegation. I'm sure that you're aware of the work of the Sunday Times in exposing this. The Sunday Times exposed this, a journalist called Andrew Norfolk. At a local level, more specifically, further evidence includes the findings of Operation Augusta, where police officers gave evidence that they were told to ignore the grooming and gang rape of white girls by Asian perpetrators. It's in Operation Augusta. The findings. That Shabir Ahmed, the ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, was both an Oldham Council employee and member of the Labour Party. That Sean Fielding walked out of a council meeting twice rather than answer a question that had been approved to be presented at a full council meeting, and that Labour Party politicians, masquerading as members of the public, used up the allocated time for public questions. All of this has been evidenced. My friend Oldham Miah put a video up. Hi Oldham Miah, are you here? There you go. How you doing, mate? That having been forced to announce a review into historical child sex offences, after first referring to these as barefaced lies, Sean Fielding's own lead investigator, the renowned Dr. Mark Peel, refused to undertake the work he was commissioned for. Factual. That this review, since taken on by Andy Burnham, has had its findings pushed back to after the local election. Factual. This is after Andy Burnham's office acknowledged that they had failed to accurately record the testimonies of witnesses and in some instances also failed to turn up to take testimonies as arranged. Factual. If you are familiar with Oldham, you will also know that the council kept hidden that Councillor Rod Blythe was convicted of child sex offences while Sean Fielding was leader. Factual. Where's my allegations, Hannah? That an associate of Sean Fielding, a teacher at Failsworth School where Sean Fielding was a governor, groomed and married one of his students. Factual. He was promoted. Factual. And then a number of years later was quietly moved on or sacked. I ain't got to the bottom of that, and that's why I've said moved on or sacked from the school after being found to have been text messaging another student. Factual. The council have hidden, as they did with Rod Blythe, that this man faced criminal charges. Factual. That a drinking partner of Sean Fielding, Councillor Martin Judd, is currently facing a trial for child sex exploitation. Factual. It wouldn't surprise me, Jack. Seven. Regarding voter fraud, it is the Electoral Commission itself that named Oldham as a hotspot. That's right, the Electoral Commission. Not me. Also, it is the Labour Party that has suspended the coldest branch of the party from selecting its own candidate. The branch is suspended because of fraud. Again, this is not my allegation. Coldest branch of the Labour Party, Abdul Jabbar's branch, is suspended. I maintain that Oldham Council is corrupt. I do not believe I am the only person in the town to believe this. In respect of evidence providing this, a selection includes. So I'm not just picking a belief out of the thin air. I'm evidencing why I believe Oldham Council is corrupt. And this was just, this is 4 a.m. Councillor Stephen Bashforth, leaving a restaurant with a barrel of beer under his arm. When exposed, he claimed this was on sale or return. Councillor Bashforth does not have a licence to sell alcohol. If it was not a bribe, then he is a bootlegger. No, Debbie, he was convicted when Sean Fielding was leader of the council. It's important. Blythe was convicted. While Sean Fielding was leader of the council. Please, it's important. I checked my facts. So, Bashforth, bootlegger. He can't sue me because he left the restaurant. He declared it himself. I've got his screen grabs of his post. He took it on sale or return. He's not got a licence to sell alcohol. It makes him a bootlegger. A Labour Party councillor in Royton is a bootlegger. It's not an allegation, it's a fact. He's called himself a bootlegger. The head of planning was suspended for gross misconduct and disappeared under a cloud. It's not me saying it. I think Howard Sykes got the information out of the council. And this is the one that will not go away no matter what they say, because it is the council attempting to rig an election. Oldham Council sold Glodic baths during Purdah at a knockdown price to an organisation with declared links to Councillor Arood Shah. She was a candidate in the election. The rules of selling public assets in the lead up to elections is not allowed, let alone to a community organisation that is linked to a candidate which boasts of its power and influence in the community. The Freedom of Information requests I've drawn out of the council proves they sold that building during Purdah. I have the paperwork. Point 9. Bear with me, people. Sorry, I think, if you wanted me to come on, I do this diligently. Because this is how we beat them. It's not through hiss. Because this matters. Heart matters. But it's not through this. We beat them through this. You further intend to report that a post on your page, on my page, alleged worrying news emerging of police being called to multiple polling stations where Asian candidates or their cartel goons are intimidating voters. I ask her, have you even checked to see if there is anything factually inaccurate regarding police being called to multiple police stations? Police were called to multiple police stations. Or that Asian candidates and the cartel goons were intimidating voters. Debbie Barrett Cole will tell you herself. I have witnesses, and this includes voters that have had their vote stolen through impersonation. That's right, voters in North Chadderton had their vote stolen through impersonation. I gave Detective Sergeant Andy Day's phone number to one victim who got in touch with him. I know this victim. He will give evidence wherever it is required. Point 10. Do you take offence to my belief? Do not be surprised if there are no arrests. By now we all know who the gatekeeper D.I. Kenny Blaine and Andy Burnham controlled Greater Manchester Police are there to protect. Hannah, you are aware that Greater Manchester Police is currently in special measures, and the best part of 100,000 crimes have disappeared. I'm presuming that a journalist at the Sunday Times is aware that respected police officers have referred to Andy Burnham as corrupt. Indeed, one of the candidates at the mayoral election openly posted this on social media. Nonetheless, I am grateful that you intend to reference my naming of D.I. Kenny Blaine. Please, reference D.I. Kenny Blaine. I think he's bent. I don't think I'm the only one who thinks he's bent. And this is why we think he's bent. This DI recently was tasked with investigating a crime where Sean Fielding used his official position as leader of Oldham Council to contact the employers of people he took a dislike to, with false and malicious allegations. Victims took this to the police with a paper trail of evidence. Fielding even boasted over what he did. After sitting on the investigation for months and delaying interviewing victims, D.I. Kenny Blaine decided the evidence threshold had not been met. During the course of his, inverted commas on purpose, investigation, he failed to interview Sean Fielding as well as failing to interview the employers of his victims. In a letter to the victims, D.I. Kenny Blaine referred to himself as the gatekeeper. Why don't you speak to these victims, Hannah? (11) During the course of my exercising my democratic right as available to me in a liberal Western democracy, despite multiple attempts to have me arrested, at each occasion Sean Fielding and his Labour Party associates have failed. The one time I was interviewed under caution, it quickly emerged that the evidence presented to Greater Manchester Police by Debbie Abrahams MP had been doctored. Once the CPS were presented with details of what I had actually written, rather than what an MP falsely presented as I had written, the CPS dropped their case. Factual. Furthermore, over the last 2 years, I have had repeated death threats from individuals with clear business links, friendships and family associations with multiple Labour Party politicians. This campaign has been led by Irish Immy, the childhood friend of the now leader of Oldham Council. Factual. I'm sure you're aware that as well as being convicted as Dale Cregan's getaway driver, this convicted heroin dealer was convicted on the 21st of December 2020 for malicious communication after posting his scouts had been following me and that I was gay. Factual. This followed another one of Councillor Arooj Shah's friends taking to social media and referencing me as a gay Christian convert. Factual. For your information, I refuse to deny I am gay because if I did this, then I endorsed their homophobia. Do you see? How can I be hard right when the hard rights I know of are homophobic? And as unbelievable as it may sound, Arooj Shah posted love hearts to a message by one of her gangster associates offering to stop me from ever voting again. This was a death threat. I have all of the Facebook screen grabs. May I ask why it is that you are not interested in these posts? Oh, I think she's getting paid. I don't think she's getting paid in money, Sue. I think she's getting paid in other ways. Thank you, Debbie. There you go. During this relentless abuse and harassment towards me from Labour Party politicians and their supporters, the malicious blogger and proven liar Neil Wilby has been, and because we know Neil Wilby will complain about this YouTube broadcast, because he complains about all of mine, trying to get him censored and doctored and removed. The term malicious blogger, for the YouTube people who are going to have to check this video, the term malicious blogger is not mine. It's actually a judge in a court case. And the proven liar, he's a proven liar because he lost a libel case and was ordered to pay £76,000 to £78,000 of damages after falsely claiming some poor policeman had links to Jimmy Savile. So malicious blogger and proven liar are accurate terms, and they're not my terms. He's claimed I'm a far-right activist. Yeah. That I have been attacked by a mob and the police took no action against the mob, thereby encouraging further attacks. I believe that's what he did. The truth is, I had never been assaulted and will be fabricated, the entire thing. The entire story had been fabricated. He claimed I'd been attacked by a bunch of Asian guys, they'd beaten me up, and the police decided not to take any action. It's dog whistle politics. He engaged in social media exchanges with both Sean Fielding and an anonymous account, Rusty Wheels, that put up a picture of my front door of my house on Twitter with a chilling message. Factual. Shared pictures of my 9-year-old godson with abuse. Factual. Naming people who share my posts or just listen to my transmissions. This includes sharing their photographs, work and family details. You've all had been abused this way. He's named you. Why? He said where you live or what your photographs or details about you. Why? To intimidate you. Has repeatedly had information removed from social media for harassment and bullying. Factual. Falsely claimed that I was subject to multiple police investigations and due in court on 2 occasions. Remember, I was meant to be in court on Remembrance Sunday, according to him. There are reasons why I've been able to do this, for as long as I've been able to do this. That's because I operate in this space. A space of facts and evidence. Finally, I think you do the people of my town a massive disservice. They are capable of making up their own minds as to what is going on in Oldham, as is going on in other towns and cities with similar challenges where the Labour Party has betrayed the working class. I really expected better of the Sunday Times. What are you, Hannah? A journalist or still a Labour Party press officer? Be in no doubt whatsoever. I do not fear you or your newspaper. I serve my town and I will do so for as long as I am able. Raja Miah, MBE. P.S. I have attached an up-to-date photograph should you want a picture. Bring it on. I see we've got a few new viewers who are here to try and disrupt the transmission. Just ignore them, and when I can look to the side, I'll ban them as I'm going along. So don't worry about that. Did a vicious Facebook fake news campaign finish off a council leader? Where is the fake news, Hannah? Which bit is the fake news? Where is the fake news? Let's rip this to pieces. He was a rising young star in the Labour Party. That actually says more about how low the Labour Party standards have fallen rather than how high. Apparently, who stood alongside the Mayor Andy Burnham as Greater Manchester leaders pitted themselves against the government at the height of the pandemic. At the height of the pandemic, in Oldham, Sean Fielding was in a rubber dinghy in a pool in Lanzarote. Fact. Well, I don't know about the rubber dinghy stuff, but in a pool, I'm sure there was a pool involved. But he was in Lanzarote. National media appearances followed for Sean Fielding, who had become leader of Oldham Council aged 28. A local lad who was brought up in Failsworth, the area he was elected to represent, and plays the cornet in brass bands, a proud tradition in the borough. Why have you admitted, Hannah, that the bloke he plays a brass band with is one of the school teachers from Failsworth? Yet at the recent election, he lost his seat, toppled, he believes, by a vicious social media campaign which accused him and other Labour politicians of corruption and allowing Asian grooming gangs to operate in the town with impunity, and alleged the police refused to act because they were under the control of Burnham. Fielding dropped from 1,511 votes last time, a resounding victory over second place UKIP, to 1,281 votes, even though UKIP did not stand a candidate. Hold on. Hannah Al-Offman of the Sunday Times. The UKIP of 4 years ago, pre-Brexit, is not the UKIP of today. Context always matters, Hannah. He lost by 191 votes to a candidate from hyperlocal Failsworth Independent Party. They use this term hyperlocal in a derogatory way. Hyperlocal, as I see it, is local people standing up as politicians for local people. I will put the people of my ward first above anything else. That is not derogatory. That's something to be applauded. But this fake liberal lot have come up with this hyperlocal term. The events in Oldham have led to fears that democracy is at risk of disinformation, so powerful it can swing elections. Where has it led to fears, Hannah? Is it in the cocktail bars you hang out in the trendy part of London? Outside, I suppose, with lockdown. Where has it led to fears? Do you know what's led to fears in my town, Hannah? It's people like you systematically ignoring the injustices to my people and then exploiting them at every opportunity. That's what the fear is, that the mainstream media is the problem. And here we go. Allowed to spread by social media companies that will not act, and an electoral commission that cannot act, as legislation is dangerously out of date. So who said all of this, Hannah? Who said all of this? You? Clearly it's come from you, because you don't quantify it as to someone else who said it. Fielding 31 was first elected in Failsworth West in 2012, and a year later was joint recipient of a National Young Councillor of the Year award with Arud Shah, who hangs off the arms of gangsters. See how she ignored the Arud Shah reference? Why, Hannah? Why did you ignore who he jointly won it with? In 2016, he and his girlfriend bought a house in the area. Why don't you reference who his girlfriend now works for and how she got the job, Hannah? And he was re-elected with 60% of the vote. So what, Hannah? A community champion who led a successful campaign to slash local bush fares by 30% in 2018, who was elected to lead the Labour group and as a result the council. Why are you admitting that he took power in a coup after ousting the existing leader of the Labour Party, Hannah? Why are you admitting how there was a coup against a woman, Jean Stretton, that many believe was McMahon flexing his muscles, and in came Sean Fielding and Arud Shah, who McMahon could influence more effectively than he could influence Jean Stretton and the leadership group that she had around her? Raja Miah, former charity, blah, blah, blah. I'll get to that in a minute. Enter Raja Miah. Pause. Hannah, I signed off my email to you, Raja Miah MBE. Why have you omitted my MBE, Hannah? You're a scumbag, really, aren't you, Hannah? You're a dirty little scrote. You are, aren't you, Hannah? Why have you omitted my MBE there? It's to malign me, isn't it, Hannah? A former charity head and businessman. I'm not a businessman, am I? But I'm a former charity head, I'll take that. Who took umbrage with local Labour MP Jim McMahon when he responded to concerns from constituents about the academy schools Miah ran. His schools later shut down. Question 1, Hannah. Where have I ever said I've took umbrage with him because of my role in the schools? I took umbrage, as documented in all of this, because of the way McMahon has exploited my people. Because of the way McMahon has used the Muslim bloc vote. Because of his cosy relationship with mosques. Because he hangs out with gangsters, with sex offenders. That's what I've took umbrage at, Hannah. Where have you got it? I took umbrage over this. Did I tell you that, Hannah? No. Because if I've took umbrage over something for a reason, I know why I've took umbrage. as well as suggesting that Fielding has covered up child abuse. I'm not the one who's suggesting Fielding has covered up child abuse on my own, am I? The Conservatives put a motion forward wanting the government called in. Brian Hoban stood up and presented this motion, and Fielding and his mates rewrote it. And she's put it in. I refer to the former council leader, Sean Samosa Fielding, and accused Labour of voter fraud and corruption. The Labour Party is accusing Labour of voter fraud. It's not me. The Labour Party is accusing Labour. Why else is the party in Calder suspended? Why is the Labour branch in Calder suspended, Hannah? The Labour Party have said this. As for corruption, Hannah, I gave you clear evidence. I gave you clear evidence of Glodick Baths. I gave you clear evidence of Barrelgate Bashforth. Why is this not in there, Hannah? On polling day, one of Mia's Facebook posts said, worrying news emerging, blah, 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 Ken again. You got all that, yeah? Hold on. How did... So we're clear, Hannah. Because I'm pretty good with my geography of my hometown. I don't need an A to Z to get around my hometown. I can go from Sholver to Saddleworth to Shaw, Failsworth to Fitton Hill. I could probably walk there. I probably have walked between all those places. Never mind driven or caught a bus. Hannah. The polling stations where Asian candidates and the cartel and ghouls were intimidating voters. Medlock Vale, Werneth, Coldust. Those areas. St Mary's, Alexander. Sean Fielding wasn't standing for election in those areas, was she? The people of Failsworth weren't voting in elections from those areas, were they? There were no cartel goons or Asian gangsters in Failsworth. It's why they were able to take him out, in my opinion, because it was a cartel-free area. So what part of Failsworth, Hannah, was I referencing in that post? Because I wasn't. Yes, Anita, you tell them. And here is the lie. Here is the Labour Party press officer. Or the manipulation of the truth, shall we say. In Greater Manchester as a whole, Labour bucked the national trend and held on to the vast majority of its councils, helped in part by a burn and bounce. Complete fabrication, complete lie. In Greater Manchester as a whole, Labour bucked the national trend and held on to the majority of... Hannah, how many of the councils in Greater Manchester were at risk of swapping hands? Only a third of councillors are elected. And in many Greater Manchester towns, the majority of Greater Manchester towns, the majority is so big that even if they lost all the seats, the Labour Party would still be in control, like they are in Oldham. Do you think that little nuance of truth might have something to do with it rather than the burn and bounce? What is it, Hannah? Are you hoping for a little bounce yourself? But Fielding was defeated. He thinks the online smear campaign... What online smear campaign, Hannah? I'm still waiting to find out what the fake news is that you've headlined with. What is that I've shared that is fake news? Here we go. Fielding, who was defeated, he thinks the online smear campaign reignited historical tensions and played on locals' fears, leading to his defeat. Fielding is not the only one who has battled against a campaign of disinformation. Aspersions have been cast on the Labour Party leaders. Angela Rayner, who represents Ashton-under-Lyne, the parliamentary constituency that includes Failsworth too, as well as her fellow MPs Matt Mann and Debbie Abrams and other councillors. Why are you omitting it, Hannah? Arut Shah, the now leader of the Labour Party, hangs off the arm of a convicted heroin dealer and a getaway driver of Dale Cregan. It's factual, Hannah. The Oldham disinformation campaign has echoes of QAnon. Has it? Sorry, Marlene's tuned on. I won't swear. The US conspiracy theory that believes political figures to be part of a shadowy global paedophile ring. Where have I said that any UK political figure is part of a shadowy global paedophile ring, Hannah? Where have I said that? And whose followers were amongst the insurgents who stormed the Capitol building in January? Hannah, in my transmission just before the election, I reminded people of the power of voting. I urge people to go out and vote, not storm a building. I urge them to go and put an X on a piece of ballot paper, because my town has some of the poorest turnouts in the country. QAnon theory spread like wildfire on social media, and it is social media that allowed the conspiracies to take hold in Oldham. What conspiracies, Hannah? Have I said something about a shadowy global paedophile ring, Hannah? No. Have I? Insurgents, Hannah. The word insurgents. I don't think I've even used the word insurgents. I advocated the storming of anywhere, ever. And it is social media that allowed the conspiracies to take hold in Oldham. In closed Facebook groups where some of the most powerful local political messages were posted beyond the eyes and scope of the Electoral Commission. Hannah, the RECUSANT 9 platform is open for you to join. There's 3,600 people. I regularly post on it. This YouTube channel is broadcast freely. Where's the closed group, Hannah? I'm not hiding. I've never been hiding. You're a muppet, aren't you, Hannah? You're an absolute muppet. Hyper-local Facebook groups are often controlled by a small group of residents, and posts typically cover everything from offers of free plants to requests for recommendations for a childminder to warnings about suspicious characters spotted in the neighbourhood. But they can also foray into politics. The majority of closed Facebook groups in Oldham are run by the Labour Party, supporters of the Labour Party. I know they are. People tell me they are. The various I Love Oldham equivalents. Hey, Jane. Gripes about MPs, local councillors and general dissatisfaction with the area often discussed in view of hundreds of voters. Hold on. Are you claiming that people should not be able to share their dissatisfaction with each other? Hannah, is that what you're saying? Is that what a journalist is saying from the Sunday Times? That people should be prevented from sharing their dissatisfaction with others? But most of these groups are close to the public, typically requiring those who wish to join to provide details about their connection to the area and sometimes supply an address or postcode. So the questions you've got to answer on Facebook to some groups. Somebody who hasn't followed RECUSANT 9, please follow RECUSANT 9. Go and click on it. You can just click it, like it, or click it and follow it. I don't ask you a single question. I don't ask you a single question. And the only people I ban are the people who start to abuse me or share racist views and opinions, overt racist views and opinions. And that's only after I've tried to engage with them and say, come on, this is not on. We're not going to get anywhere speaking like this. And if they continue, I ban and block them. While every billboard, online advert or leaflet must be declared and costed, Facebook posts come under no such scrutiny. So are you saying, Hannah, that people can't share their... Do you want to sanction people from posting their views and opinions? Is that what you and your friends in the Sunday Times want to do? It's called censorship. And in Fielding's case, the local residents group Failsworth Matters, where many of the messages against him were posted, is managed by a small group of Facebook accounts with one of the names Mark and Kath Wilkinson. Mark Wilkinson, a community activist and former policeman, is the man who defeated Fielding at the ballot box and who won the seat for the Failsworth Independent Party. Fielding had made attempts to defend himself in the group, but he says that he was removed by administrators, as were other people, typically Labour members, who had spoken in support of him. How many of you have been banned and blocked by the Labour Party? How many of you have been banned and blocked by Fielding? How many of you have been banned and blocked from I Love Oldham for no other reason than just challenging them and doing what Fielding is claiming he tried to do? That's exactly what she's saying, Hannah. Hannah's exactly saying this, Kerry. She is suggesting that local Facebook groups should be shut down because it allows people to communicate too much. They want to control us. The Wilkinsons do not deny abusive material was posted on the page, but said they never posted anything themselves and deleted it when they saw it. So what was posted, Hannah? A second local group, Failsworth First, which also contained what Fielding said were some of the most visceral attacks on him, was run by a far-right sympathiser, Stephen Walsh, who was convicted as part of a gang involved in the Oldham race riots. The Oldham race riots was in 2001. Hannah's friend, Irish Himmy, is he your friend, Hannah? Because you've omitted him, the heroin dealer and Dale Cregan's getaway driver, was convicted most recently in December 2020. Why is what this guy did in 2001 relevant, Hannah, and why that Pakistani gangster did in 2020 not relevant? In fact, I don't know who Stephen is, but I doubt he was at the election count last week, walking up and down the civic centre, the same as Irish Himmy was. The number of posts, comments and shared links in these and other local groups, which between them have a membership of more than 10,000, which refer to corruption and cover-ups by Labour, number in the thousands. Fielding said, with allegations repeated on a daily basis. I don't make allegations, Fielding. Hannah knows. I've sent her the evidence. I sent her the evidence in September 2019, when I first contacted her. Photographs and details about his partner and other members of his family have been shared on Facebook and Twitter by far-right accounts. Fielding, you personally took part, engaged with Neil Wilby, who has called me falsely a far-right activist. You personally engaged with Rusty Wheels, who put a picture of my front door. Your mate Jim McMahon personally endorsed Irish Himmy and provided him with a platform on his social media account. And all of this, Sean Fielding. Hannah, I told you I'm sure Mark told you. I know others contacted you and told me. Jane Barker contacted you. Pete Jackson contacted you. And shared with you information of how Sean Fielding has used his official position as leader of the council to make false and malicious allegations about them to employers, where he was lying about people and trying to get them sacked. Where is all of this here, Anna? You are a disgrace. Your parents will be ashamed of you, Hannah. Sorry, Paul, I don't know any of these names. But I think what's irrelevant is what a guy did in 2001. If that's relevant, then the fact that Irish Emu was convicted in December 2020 is also relevant. More relevant. And then she picks up quotes. Sean Fielding and his Labour Party cronies are up to their necks in the grooming gangs. Blah, blah, blah. You're sick up to your neck in a heap of trouble with your Pakistani pedo friends, aren't you, Jim? If Hannah took a moment to look at some of the things Neil Wilby, Tahir Mushtaq and Irish Imi, Arood Shah, Sean Fielding, Jim McMahon, Angela Rayner said about me, you'll see it's at least as bad, if not worse. Fielding began to realise how much the allegations had cut through when coronavirus restrictions were lifted and he was able to knock on doors in the run-up to elections. Well, then that just shows how stupid he is then, doesn't it? If he's not in tune with his community, then that's his fault. Last time I looked, Mark Wilkinson was handing out food parcels in his community during coronavirus restrictions. He wasn't gallivanting on holiday to Lanzarote for 2 weeks. There was nothing to stop Fielding from speaking to the people of Failsworth because of coronavirus restrictions. There were many community services he could have provided to the people of his ward if he had chosen to do so. When I was going around, there were people that wouldn't even engage with me or engage with me with Labour Party because they'd already got an impression from us that they'd read in the Facebook groups, he said. And people that were willing to engage, often it became so time-consuming that you're having to spend 10 minutes. You're having to spend 10 minutes talking to people. Oh, what a shame. You're having to spend 10 minutes talking to people. When they would say, what's all this on the internet about child abuse? Well then, Sean, what is it about on the internet about child abuse? Hannah went to Facebook. So they are desperate to try and remove me from Facebook and social media and even trying to cancel my buy me a coffee. Please, buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee. Have a subscribe to the channel. I'm coming back. I just need to fill my drink up. Just give me a second. It's a good time to stop because we've got to get through the rest of it. If you're still with us, you're all still with us. Wow. Okay. Give me 30 seconds, please. And I'll come back, okay? Oh, I have 100 likes. Oh, I've got 4 dislikes. Hiya, Neil. You hear me? Hear me? Or MTS? I don't know. He's not even called him, is he? He's just got a name. No doubt the mustaches and Crybaby is watching. A Facebook spokesman said, while we allow critical discussion of politicians, Facebook has clear rules against fake accounts, hate speech and threats of harm. My name is Raja Miah. I post as Raja Miah. I am the admin, or I'm responsible for the page RECUSANT 9. I think there's no ambiguity whatsoever on the page RECUSANT 9 that it's me who runs that page. I think fake accounts are the domain of Sean Fielding's dad. Have I got that right? Hate speech? There's nothing come from me that's ever been hate speech. And threats of harm, I've never threatened anyone. How did we start this evening? I urged all of you to continue to conduct yourself with dignity and tolerance. Because in a free society, as the poem at the beginning, I don't have to conform to your views and opinions. I can disagree with you. What is all this about? What do you want from me? What do you want from my friends and my family and all the supporters here? You want us to go quietly into the night? Turn our backs on our children that are groomed and gang raped? Turn our back on our historic buildings in our town that are given away to gangsters and heroin dealers? What is it you want? We have removed posts and pages which violated these policies. Posts can also be reported for removal where there is a clear legal case for defamation, or they can be flagged as false information by a third-party fact-checkers. What have I presented that's false information? Because fake news is where the headline of this started. What is it that I have presented, Hannah, as fake news? Which part of anything I have said is fake news, Hannah? You're the Sunday Times. You should be ashamed of yourself. Which part of anything have I said is fake news? Who is this? There is no evidence to suggest that grooming gangs are operating freely in Oldham, but smears are powerful because they play on historical tensions. Who's saying this, Hannah? Is this you who's saying this? There is no evidence to suggest that grooming gangs are operating freely in Oldham. Hannah. Go and speak to my friend Billy at Page UK. 809 victims, Hannah. There's a CSE unit launched by Greater Manchester Police, a special CSE unit launched a few weeks ago by Greater Manchester Police. There is no evidence to suggest that grooming gangs are operating freely in Oldham. Hannah. If you followed the focus of what I've been saying, I make reference to historical CSE and those that have been failed. I make reference to the grooming and gang rape of children from the school gates of Count Hill School. Count Hill School has been closed for a number of years, Hannah. I'm very clear in my use of English, Hannah. It's my second language. So I've got to think it through. So I'm very clear in the way I express myself in English. Notice how she tries to shift it there. There is no evidence to suggest that grooming gangs are operating freely in Oldham. Are you saying, Hannah, that grooming gangs did not operate freely in Oldham? Because I think Greater Manchester Police will disagree with you, Hannah. In fact, I'm sure Greater Manchester Police will disagree with you. The smears are powerful because they play on historical tensions. Oh, so what that means is community relations. That term that was used by Jim McMahon in that email with Kevin Fitzpatrick, the BBC reporter. Community tensions. Community relations. So we don't protect white working class girls from Asian grooming gang members because of community tensions, community relations and historical tensions. Hannah, just work backwards. Why do those historical tensions exist? Because that's the crux of the matter if we are going to build a town that is home, inclusive and welcoming to all of us who live in it. We've got to address the underlying issues. I don't care what plays on historical tensions. What I care about is why those historical tensions exist and whether they still exist and how they now manifest themselves and what we're doing to address them. Because I believe that by having all of this out and bringing to justice those people who did this, we can build a better town. At the turn of the century, the town erupted in violence after a long period of strained relations between groups from the white and South Asian communities. They were the first of a number of race riots in town across northern England. And Hannah, why do you omit on that point that Raja Miah was a member of the government task force on community cohesion, where I sat alongside the Home Secretary and other government ministers and advised them on what became the National Community Cohesion Strategy? Is that not relevant here, Hannah? That I was a member of the government task force? Stupid woman. Stupid, ignorant woman. More than a decade later, in neighbouring Rochdale, a gang of British Pakistani men were convicted of long-running offences, including rape and trafficking of vulnerable girls, leading Greater Manchester Police to apologise for failing to investigate properly. So the context, Hannah, you're admitting to it, is that the grooming gangs went freely in Rochdale. The ringleader, Shabir Ahmed, previously worked for Oldham Council. Oh, so before I brought it to public attention, the council refused to even acknowledge that Fielding worked for Oldham. Shabir Ahmed, Daddy, worked for Oldham Council. It was long before Fielding was in charge. So why wasn't Fielding brave enough to stand up and acknowledge that Shabir Ahmed worked for Oldham Council? Because they've avoided, the council to this date has avoided that acknowledgement. But the connection is still used to link the Labour-run authority to child sexual exploitation. Two other reasons, Hannah, and I shared those with you in my correspondence to you. Well, one of them I did. Shabir Ahmed was a member of the Labour Party, Hannah. He was a member of the Labour Party in Oldham. And Shabir Ahmed also lived in Oldham, as did one of his mates, one of the other grooming gang members. Do you think these two ringleaders and their pals hopped across to Rochdale and did everything in Rochdale and came back home and went to the mosque, pretending everything was all right? All the evidence suggests that this is a cross-town, cross-county operation. They trafficked young people from Oldham into Rochdale, from Rochdale into Oldham, into Bury yesterday. Bury convictions. Calderdale convictions. Halifax convictions. Bradford, Huddersfield convictions. And there was this magic shield around Oldham. The social media fire started by me. I didn't start a fire. Is it Billy Joel? It was always burning. Has been fueled by the far right. It has not been fueled by the far right. My people here are not the far right. How dare you? How dare you? Seeking to exploit community tensions. We're not seeking to exploit community tensions. We're seeking to heal our town. This is where we live. This is where we raise our children. We're not the far right. Thank you, Teresa. Exactly, Kerry. And local Labour figures said some of those stoking. Who are these local Labour figures, Hannah? Some of those stoking these tensions. Who are stoking these tensions, Hannah? Use Mia's ethnicity to deny that their motivations were racist. Hannah, I don't play identity politics. It's not my ethnicity, Hannah. It's my 30-year track record as an anti-racist activist. It's my track record as advising government ministers and prime ministers, heads of state, secretaries of state. It's my expertise in this area, Hannah, that you object to, you and your kind object to. It's not my ethnicity. I'm not one of your jabbers or your Arooj Shah's first Muslim leader. I don't need to take my skin or my religion to become credible. My skills and expertise is what makes me credible, not my ethnicity. Stupid woman. Hope Not Hate, an advocacy group that monitors and campaigns against far-right activity, said that closed Facebook groups are now a key tool for far-right organising. This is what this is all about. They want to ban closed Facebook groups, or they want to restrict them, or they want to legislate them. That's where all this is going. But I don't run a closed Facebook group. And are you saying that in the 21st century, we can't have private conversations with each other? Is that what they want? That we can't have private conversations with each other? A spokesman of Hope Not Hate said, "It is commonplace to find far-right activists operating in these spaces, which often have quite banal names in an attempt to avoid detection by Facebook. Hope Not Hate, I run RECUSANT 9. The term recusant is historical. Those of you who are historians like myself will recognise it to a term used for the oppression of Catholics by the state. They were referred to as the recusant Catholics. They've refused to renounce their faith and were willing to suffer the consequences That's where the term recusant comes from. There's no banal name in it. Following the collapse of established parties such as the BNP, the populist right, what on earth is the populist right and the far right? What's the populist right and the far right? What is the populist right? If you speak to Hope Not Hate, they'll tell you that everyone who voted for Brexit is a member of the populist right. So that makes 51% of the country populist right. Anti-establishment sentiment was evident at the recent elections. According to the Democracy Club, the number of candidates standing for minor parties grew from 1,015 2 years ago to 1,787. Maybe that's because people have had enough of the mainstream parties exploiting them. Maybe it's got bugger all to do with racism. And here you go, Hannah acknowledges it. Well, few candidates will hold extreme views. So she's not found anyone that has. Remember, she's put on a picture of Mark Wilkinson. So the suggestion is that he holds an extreme view by all of this other crap around it. But there's no evidence that he does. And I've had a cup of tea with him and his wife. They're not at all far right. Some activists have joined or founded local micro-parties trying to tap into anti-politics mood. The Hope Not Hate spokesman said, some of these groups are anti-council and behave aggressively towards local elected figures. Well, I would say that actually it's the local elected figures in Sean Fielding that has behaved aggressively towards the people of the town. And that, Hannah, is clearly documented and evidenced to you by Jane Barker and retired detective chief inspector, I think, please, excuse me, Pete. I forgot what you are or were. Pete Jackson. Evidenced and given to you, wasn't it, Hannah? The aggressive behaviour by Sean Fielding towards members of the townfolk that was evidenced and given to you, Hannah. You chose to ignore it. Why is Pete Jackson not here, Hannah, and Hope Not Hate here? One suits your narrative, doesn't it, Hannah? How are you feeling right now, Anna? Despite being poorly funded, I am poorly funded. Please buy me a coffee. These groups of activists who are totally obsessed. Wow. Totally obsessed. Dedicated is the word you're looking for. Dedicated to their towns and their communities. They can dominate local community Facebook groups and often completely poison the debate. Exactly, Denise. Exactly. Democracy campaigners say there is a lack of regulation. We know that UK election laws are dangerously out of date. I couldn't agree with you more. I want the banning of postal votes. I want voter ID brought in. Oh, you're not on about that, are you? You're on about censoring people like me rather than the rigging of elections. Will Moy, chief executive of Full Fact, the independent fact-checking charity, said, the Electoral Commission has been calling for them to be updated for the internet age for decades. Facebook is the third most popular news source in the country, he said, coming behind BBC One and ITV. For a lot of people, it's a trusted source of information even when it doesn't deserve their trust. Like the mainstream media deserves their trust, eh? Like BBC One and ITV deserve their trust. Sorry, Paul. Like the BBC can be trusted. Like ITV can be trusted. He added, we also know that our elections are typically swung by a very small number of voters in marginal constituencies. Oldham wasn't a marginal constituency. So things don't have to go very wrong to have big impacts. Oldham wasn't a marginal constituency. We took out the leader of Oldham Council. And his seat was a safe seat. Excuse me. This is the best bit. Debbie, you there? Rayner described the campaign against Fielding as vile, relentless and baseless, and unlike anything I've ever seen in politics. She said, not only was Sean accused of the most horrendous things, with absolutely no proof to back them up, on a daily basis, those responsible also attempted to smear his partner and even turned up en masse at their home when she was home alone. That's not acceptable and has no place in our politics. No one turned up en masse. Debbie Cole protested lawfully across the road against Sean Fielding, nothing to do with his girlfriend at all. I think there's one person in the car, one passerby, and 3 police officers who all agreed she was doing nothing wrong at the time she was protesting. What is en masse, Angela Rayner? You're just used to bullying people, aren't you? You lot are just used to bullying people and slapping us down into submission. Nah, not me. Tom Brake, former Liberal Democrat MP and director of Unlock Democracy, has written to the Electoral Commission to ask what powers it needs to regulate the new frontier of political campaigning. At the moment, it has none. Our role as set by Parliament is to regulate political finance and ensure that voters have transparency over the money spent and received by campaigners and parties, an Electoral Commission spokesman said. We do not have a role in regulating the content of campaigns, though we encourage all campaigners at elections to undertake their vital role responsibly. A spokesman for the government said that the election law would be modernised via its elections bill to do all the things I'm talking about, adding that new rules will require political campaigners to explicitly show who is behind online campaign material, and the regime will be one of the most comprehensive in the world. Well, I'm not hiding who I am. I don't belong to any party. I don't belong to China or Russia. McMahon, MP for Oldham West and Royton, said, It seemed that the more extreme the content, the more donations would pile up. It's clearly referencing me. The more extreme the content, the more donations would pile up. They're not donations. The Buy Me a Coffee site is a supporter site. People support my creative creations and my content and my platform. It's not unlawful. Because if my content was unlawful, I would have been arrested and charged, man. It's not, the content isn't extreme. Perhaps what is extreme is what I've exposed you and your mates doing. Maybe that's what is extreme. There's nothing extreme coming from here. This helped to fund targeted Facebook adverts throughout the election period. I did promote some posts throughout the election period. The samosa guides I promoted because I was running online workshops. Some of you paid, some of you didn't. I didn't say go and vote for Sean Fielding or don't vote for Sean Fielding. I simply presented the information as I saw it, factually accurate. McMahon has yet to explain his relationship with Irish Jimmy, Dale Cregan's getaway driver. He's also yet to explain to the people of the townsfolk his role in using the funeral of Lee Rigby to cover up news of grooming gangs. No, none of it's in here, Paul. None of it's in here. Miah said a lot of things, remember, but all of those, the majority of things have been completely omitted. Miah said, Mr. Raja Miah MBE to you, Hannah. I'm comfortable that the information I released is based on evidence and that in a free society I am able to draw conclusions as I see fit. He added that he had used the term samosa after Sean Fielding attended a celebration party and nibbled on samosas. I also shared with you what the party was about and my feelings towards the leader of a council turning up to a party to celebrate the deselection of one of his peers. I find that distasteful. I challenge anyone in the Labour Party to say otherwise. The leader of the council turning up to a party where one candidate has ousted an existing councillor and is holding a celebration party and the leader of the council turns up to nibble on samosas. I find that distasteful. McMahon said, the allegations were never true. You're a liar, McMahon. You're a liar. The allegations were never true. Liar, liar, liar. The Shadow Transport Minister is a liar. The allegations were never true. I'm very clear about the allegations I'm making reference to. I went through them in that email with Hannah. Everyone saw it. Everything I listed was, because you were the cabinet member in charge of this, weren't you, at the time, Jim? Was Glodic Baths sold at a discount price to associates, declared associates of Arud Shah days before the election? The council's own freedom of information requests show it was. Your council tried to rig an election in favour of Arud Shah, who then became your assistant. She won't ask you, Paul. Hannah is a Labour Party press officer still, aren't you, Hannah? False statements on matters which are so serious and sensitive have far-reaching consequences. Yes, they do. Fielding, McMahon, like all the false allegations you made about me. You pinned to your Twitter profile allegations, hearsay allegations that I was involved in some form of child safeguarding failures. Rumours of child safeguarding failures. There's no evidence, and that the Shadow Transport Minister pinned that to the top of his Twitter account. Miah responded, if Sean Fielding or anyone else in the Labour Party feel that I have done something illegal, they should be going to the police. They have been going to the police. The police just haven't arrested me because there's nothing I've shared in the public domain that is factually inaccurate. And other matters I've raised in the public domain, I've articulated my views and opinions on them, which we are allowed to do in a liberal Western democracy. Or do these people not want us to live in a liberal Western democracy? That's the question. Greater Manchester Police found no evidence of voter intimidation on the night. Selective. Voter impersonation? omitted the why, because there was clear cases of voter intimidation and voter impersonation. Fielding said, "Not everybody that went to vote against me on Thursday believed all of the child abuse conspiracy theories and believes all the corruption allegations and things. But it's my view that more than 191 majority did. So if it was 300 people that believed it, that's what swung the election." Sean. You could have put these child abuse, they're not conspiracy theories, but you could have put all of this to bed if you'd referred it to the Home Office, as the Conservatives and Brian Hoban requested that you did, and you could have put it to bed if you'd insisted that the findings of the inquiry were not pushed back until after the election, as your mate Andy Burnham pushed back for you. You reap what you sow, lad. You could have grabbed this issue and said it didn't happen on my watch and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Instead, you and your council fixed public question time, marched out of the council chamber twice instead of answering Debbie Cole's question, got up, stuck your chin in the air and shouted barefaced lies, launched an inquiry with your own terms of reference, where your own investigator ran away, and then went to your mate Andy Burnham, and it was then exposed that the team he brought in weren't even recording the testimonies of witnesses, and they were writing notes as and when they saw fit that witnesses were refusing to sign off. You also went to the press and accused victims and their families of making it up, to coincide with letters going out to victims. So if it's anything, if you believe you lost because of the concerns around CSE in Oldham, it's your failure to tackle the investigation. Voter impersonation happened, Pauline. I have a witness. 100%. I wrote to him, Paul. I urged him to do the right thing. He sent me an abusive email back. Yes, Kerry, it's exactly that. And it's exactly this. They tried to block my post on Facebook, and you can see. It was to do with the 7 sins of Sean Fielding. Facebook took it off. I disagreed with the decision. I disagreed with the decision. And it was put back on, where he abused his position and bullied the townsfolk. It's a matter of fact. The complaint was upheld. Pete Jackson's complaint was upheld. Fielding was scheduled to attend a hearing, but the council kept delaying it because they were hoping they could kick it into touch until after the elections, rather than it negatively impact on the outcome of the election. What other reason could there be for delaying it? And this is Sean Fielding. This is where he lost the election, mate. Used to be leader of Oldham Council, but got a proper job. So being the leader of my town, responsible for hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds of millions of pounds, wasn't a proper job. Is that what you're saying, Sean? This is why you were defeated, Sean. It's because of your immaturity. They thought my tweets were bad before. This timeline is going to be carnage now. I'm no longer accountable. Be careful what you wish for. The way you conducted yourself on social media, there are many reasons why you lost, Sean. They're all down to you, by the way, but you can't, no. You don't have the maturity to acknowledge where you came up short. And this is one of them. How you conduct yourself on social media. Used to be leader of Oldham Council, but got a proper job. My name is Raja Miah. I am responsible for the RECUSANT 9 channel. These transmissions are mine and mine alone. If anyone in the Labour Party or the police want to come and arrest anyone, please come and arrest me. The people who listen to me, I will defend them and I will continue to defend them. They are my townsfolk. They are not far right. They are not racist. I have friends in the Labour Party. I have friends in the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives. I have friends in mosques and synagogues and churches and temples. I've spent the best part of 30 years of my life helping building bridges between communities, protecting and safeguarding children and young people from extremists and extremist narratives. And I have a methodology and a pedagogy to the way in which I operate, which I believe builds stronger communities. Buy me a coffee before they try and take that down. I'll see you in a few weeks, hopefully. Good night.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.